Good evening. Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shoma. On the programme tonight, it now turns out that the rebel faction of the Nationalist Congress Party removed Sharad Pawar from the top post of the party that he founded and led for over 2 decades, just 2 days before their mutiny. Ajit Pawar was elected the party chief by around 40 MLAs, MLCs and MPs. At that stage, a step calculated to negate any legal hurdle. That's what the Election Commission has been informed. The rebel faction today paraded 29 MLAs and only 17 turned up to support Sharad Pawar. But some MLAs appeared for both sides, some did not show up at all. So Sharad Pawar has said that he would prefer to disregard the numbers and even poll symbols while assuring his supporters that they would not be deprived of the symbol. Our top debate: has Sharad Pawar been outplayed by his nephew Ajit? Next up on the show, for years we've tracked the state of air pollution in India and the numbers, particularly of PM 2.5, the smallest particles that cause the most damage, have been frightening. In simple terms, in India there are countless citizens who will not live as long as they normally would because of the impact of air pollution. Is there finally some good news around the corner? That's what we're going to be looking at in the second half of this program. But first, let's just turn our attention to this constant evolving situation in Maharashtra. Has Ajit Pawar been able to trump over Sharad Pawar? That's the key issue that we are looking at. Joining us now, Charan Singh Sapra of the Congress Party, Vishwas Pathak of the BJP at this stage. We'll be joined by representatives of the NCP, both those loyal to Sharad Pawar, those loyal to Ajit Pawar, in a moment from now. But Vishwas Pathak, do you believe that on the basis of these numbers, it's game, set and match to Ajit Pawar, or do you still believe that Sharad Pawar, with the support of 17 MLAs and others who said that they will support him, is still very much in the game?
See, look at it, Vishnu. This government, under the leadership of Mr. Eknath, Shinde and Devendra Fadnavis, is quite stable, and we do not require any additional numbers for proving our majority. Now, this Ajit Pawar group, that is NCP-led group, they are supporting us to give us additional strength. And whatever is happening today, or it happened on Sunday, it is more of an internal matter. Who is their supremo and who is not? It is all to be decided by the court and Speaker of the House. As far as we are concerned, we welcome their support. We have inducted them with 9 members as their ministers, and with their experience, I think Maharashtra as a government will be benefited a lot.
Charan Singh Sapra, in a situation like this, is it just within the realm of possibility, could we see a Sharad Pawar-led NCP merging with the Congress Party? Is that at all within the realm of speculation?
See, Vishnu, that only time will tell whether whatever speculation you are talking about will become true or not. But as far as the BJP spokesperson was talking now, I don't think so that this is more of an internal matter of NCP. It might be an internal matter of NCP also. But you know, the entire script was written by Shah and Shahenshah. They had written this script. And why they had written this script? Because they fear the kind of meeting which happened in Patna, the all-party meeting, and recently within a span of 6 months, they have lost 2 assembly elections, Himachal Pradesh and Karnataka. And Karnataka, they have lost miserably. So BJP very well knows that they were talking about themselves as a Majboot Sarkar, but it is not Majboot. It is a Majboor BJP, which is now, trying to divide the opposition. They are trying to use ED, IT, CBI as part of their electoral toolkit, to gain advantage in the entire electoral process. So actually the script has been written by Shah and Shahenshah.
No, that is all great sounding rhetoric, but the fact of the matter is that the BJP says that many years back it was the MVA which brought down their government. They had the maximum number of seats. So now you're saying that, in fact, it's the BJP which is at fault. Go ahead, sir.
See, Vishnu, what I'm trying to say, you see what is happening in the Shinde camp now. After these triple engine Sarkar, they never required a third engine. But still BJP wanted to do this, one, to teach a lesson to Sharad Pawar, and secondly to make themselves more strong and to divide the opposition. But actually now what is happening, the Shinde camp MLAs are disturbed. they are speaking against Ajit Pawar. They have been always speaking against Ajit Pawar.
Okay.
They never wanted Ajit
Mr.
Pawar.
Sapra, half a second, because we've got Mahesh Tapse, Chief Spokesperson of the NCP, joining us as well at this stage. Mr. Tapse, are you willing to concede now that Ajit Pawar, with the support of 40 MLCs, MLAs and MPs, clearly has an edge over Sharad Pawar?
No, and first of all, good evening, Somji, and all panelists and all viewers. Let me tell you that today we had a fantastic meeting of the entire cadre. Unfortunately, 32 MLAs were with Ajit Dada. They were bundled in a bus and taken to some destination in suburban Mumbai. And if at all, my question here is, if at all they came and signed the petition or signed their allegiance to Ajit Dada out of their own free will, then why were they bundled? Why were they not allowed to roam freely? Like how those 19 MLAs which turned up at our meeting were freely mingling with the media, freely mingling with the cadre. So there's definitely a larger design.
So 32 MLAs versus 19 MLAs. That's the count at this stage.
This is what the media has been showing. This is what I've seen on various
but
channels.
in terms of your side, 19 MLAs is the support that you enjoy presently, right?
They had come. This is what the media reported.
But is it also not true that there were leaders who went to both the gatherings?
I'm sure, because Ajit Dada is a very well-respected leader. People look up to him as a second in command to Pawar Saab. And as being a leader, being one of the senior most members in the cabinet, the leader of the opposition, MLAs would definitely go to him every week. MLAs used to meet him, so there is nothing wrong when this meeting of these MLAs was called on second.
But
so there is nothing to doubt.
But that's just my next question on this meeting, which was called 2 days prior to all of this happening, where Sharad Pawar was effectively removed from the top post. This is what they are actually saying now in their letter to the Election Commission. 40 MLAs, etc. They signed on. Do you believe that this gives the Ajit Pawar camp the legal protection to prevent a lengthy court battle?
I don't think there is any legal protection to Ajit Dada as far as signature of these MLAs is concerned. First of all, whether the MLAs knew that because with their signature, Ajit Dada is going to claim supremacy in the party. Did the legislators know? Secondly, what comes first? Whether the legislative party comes first or the political party first. As far as my understanding is there, the political party comes first. And once the MLAs are elected or Jilla Parishad members are elected or parliamentarians are elected, the parliamentary party or the legislature party will come second.
Okay. I just want to go across just half a second to...
One. I've never seen an instance where elected representatives of the legislature are appointing the national president. What is mentioned in the letter given to the Election Commission of India. As far as appointment of the state president and the national president is concerned, or the district president, taluka president, there's a proper collegium. The appointment of a state president happens in a collegium where elected members of the party coming from
what happens if he loses the trust of the large number of supporters within the party? That numerically that appears to be the case.
Process of election. Then there has to be a democratic process of election. In this case, there has been no election. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, Mahesh, just half a sec. 2/3 majority is not there with the Ajit side right now. Is that the argument that you're going to bank on as you approach the Election Commission or the courts?
No. First of all, like I said, did the legislators know that their signatures were used to send a letter to the election office proclaiming Ajit Dada as the party president of the NCP? I am very certain that legislators did not know this. They would have said, okay, because he's a leader of the opposition and for various reasons signatures are obtained, sometimes for to move a vote against the government, sometimes for a bill. So it's very common practice to take the signature of the legislator. Nobody knew. Let me tell you this. Nobody knew. And again, the Election Commission has to decide. I think in the orders in Mr. Thakere's case, it is very clear. The legislative party does not rule the political party. The political party gives birth to the legislative party in any state assembly or the parliament of the country. So the political party holds supreme than the legislative party. So in this case, taking signature of the 41 MLAs, submitting a letter to the Election Commission will not give him the edge to proclaim himself as the president of the NCP. I'm sure there are.
So let's see what finally happens over there. But let me just go across to Vishwas Pathak. Vishwas ji, You know, Sharad Pawar said in the past, and this is a quote of his, in the past I had 68 MLAs. When I went out for some time, 62 left us. I had just 6. In the election, out of 62, only 4 could come back. But we won with new faces. The fact of the matter is, you might have the numbers with Ajit Pawar's support now, but the groundswell that Sharad Pawar may very well enjoy could actually work against you next year. I mean, that's the argument which his supporters in the Congress would actually make. How would you respond?
No, we are not worried about what will happen there. See, as far as Mr. Sharad Pawar is concerned, he has been in the politics of Maharashtra for more than 4 decades. Despite of that, he has never reached a number beyond 70. As against that, this Kejriwal or Mamta, Lalita, everyone, they have got their governments at their own. That is what exactly Mr. Ajit Dada Pawar said. Now, I want to bring 2 points to your notice. My friend Tapasi was talking about a lot of legislative interpretations and all that thing and democratic process. 8 days back, Mr. Pawar, through one-liner, appointed this Praful Patel as working president, national working president, and Supriya Sule as the national working president. Just by one-liner. So all this dynastic politics, they don't believe into democracy. They don't have any rule and procedure to be followed. Same Mr. Pawar in 1978 betrayed his own guru, that is Vasantdada Patil, and came out and formed a government. Thereafter, again, he joined Congress, left out. So he has a track record of any credibility. And because of that, Mr. Pawar, this younger Pawar, he felt that there has to be some consistency in thought. In 2017, Mr. Pawar said, BJP, we should go with BJP, not with Shiv Sena. Suddenly he said we should go with Shiv Sena, not with BJP. So this kind of tentative approach by Mr. Pawar has been ruled out by this Ajit Dada Pawar. And now what is happening with Ajit Pawar? Entire NCP is with him for simple reason that Mr. Pawar was not having any democratic setup within his party. Now I will come to Mr. Sapra's point. The very script has been written by Congress party. The very reason of split in NCP's Congress party, because nobody wanted Rahul Gandhi to be the leader of the opposition. And
okay,
Mr.
so
Pawar,
let's give the Congress a chance to respond as well. Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi joins us now, senior Congress leader, MP, well-known jurist. Thanks so very much for being with us. You know, it is a speculative question, but I think in the situation you'll appreciate it, Dr. Singhvi. You know, with the BJP having sort of taken over the Ajit Pawar camp in a sense, is there a possibility of the Congress, reaching out to Sharad Pawar and perhaps strengthening your own position by having him within the Congress, him and his sizable number of supporters?
Look, Vishnu, just give me a second. I think. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
You have, in one particular word you used, answered your question yourself. This BJP is now becoming a takeover party. It doesn't form the government in Goa. It takes over something. It does it in Northeast, does it in Karnataka, does it in Madhya Pradesh. Now, this is like first building something without a building sanction, making 2 floors without a building sanction, without occupancy certificate, calling it double engine, occupying it with a judgment which held against them on all counts except one. And then building a 3rd floor, an already illegal building, and calling it a 3-engine sarkar. So this is taking over existing groups, is the BJP style. I think that's very important.
No, you're not answering my question, Dr. Singh.
About us. No, your question has to be contextually seen. I don't think the Congress is in a takeover mode. The Congress is in a very firm alliance, which is the MVA. Mr. Sharad Pawar is a pillar of that. We have no takeover, as you call it, intentions or aspirations.
No, let's change that word takeover. Is there a possible of some sort of a merger? What if Sharad Pawar and the other leaders were to approach the Congress, and purely from a tactical standpoint ahead of the elections, if you have a stronger single entity, then would that not potentially be something you'd look at?
I think that is not the need of the hour. I don't think it's at all relevant even. I think it's a very peripheral issue. See, the MVA today, as it exists, even minus Ajit Pawar, is a very strong alliance. Now, the fact that you are having problems with certain people with Mr. Ajit Pawar doesn't mean that we have to coalesce into one party. I mean, there are their own internal contradictions you see in a khichdi combination of the Shiva Sena, Shinde faction, the BJP and now Mr. Ajit Pawar. Is that the kind of union you want? A union of incompatibles, and already there are murmurings, very strong murmurs of dissent. We have our independent identity in the MPA. And I think the important thing is to fight unitedly, see the sympathy overflowing and deal with it legally, because there are several legal illegalities. This oath is unconstitutional. This whole Sarkar in that sense is unconstitutional. But we understand that courts take time to decide. But it is much better to concentrate on those issues than to concentrate on trying and merging things into a uneatable khichdi or into a situation where everybody start fighting each other within that merger.
Fair point, but would you concede that Ajit Pawar has got the better of Sharad Pawar with the support base that he enjoys? I mean, it's
Hardly.
between 32 and 42 MLAs, 32 and 40 MLAs versus 17 to 19 at this stage.
Vishnu, that's an extremely superficial way of looking at support. You know, by any legal test, and we'll be coming to those stages later, the party is not 32 MLAs. Even the official symbol under the law is to be given by the Election Commission by looking at a party. The party includes a much larger entity from the top right down to the tehsil, to the office bearers, intermediate at district and state level. That's even forgetting everything else, the legal test. So in effect, what Mr. Ajit Pawar is doing is a self-congratulatory pat on the back by having some group of MLAs gone. That is not the party. You know, in the last judgment we succeeded in, I'll give you a simple example. If this is the party, suppose the lakhs of people are with Mr. Sharad Pawar, and even his worst enemies today would concede that the tallest figure in Maharashtra politics, cutting across lines, is Mr. Sharad Pawar. Suppose the Sharad Pawar group as a party was to give a whip under a judgment which is hardly 6 months old, that is binding on the legislative group. So just to have 34 and start dancing with joy is not the party.
But tell me one thing, sir.
We understand, one second more. We understand that the BJP functions on the process being the punishment. They realize that ultimately this is all wrong. But they know that last time it took 1 year to declare the Shiv Sena episode wrong in 9 out of 10 counts in that judgment. So they are again banking on the fact that this will again take time. The fact that it will take time does not rob it of its basic illegality.
No, it doesn't. But assuming that conclusion of yours is correct, but I'm just from a legal standpoint, we are now told that the NCP removed Sharad Pawar from the post that, of party chief 2 days before the coup, as it were. And then there was this letter of support from 40 MLAs, MLCs and MPs, etc., etc. Is that something that protects Ajit Pawar from anti-defection?
I think these are all, very cheap tricks of the trade, thinking that the law is an ass and let us make a bigger ass of it. I find it very amusing that all the events, I was abroad, I came back on Sunday, all the events take place on Sunday or rather Monday. And we today have, and I'm not sure what is the official website, so I may be wrong, I hope I'm wrong, the EC telling you that Mr. Ajit Pawar's faction filed a complaint on 30th.
The Election Commission has apparently been informed that an election was has taken, that Sharad Pawar was removed from the top post of the party, right, 2 days before the coup, before the mutiny, is what they are informed, and that there is this letter with this sort of support.
Election Commission, so the point number one, we are now suddenly told that there is, now whether it's backdating, anti-dating, I don't know, these will all be seen in the fullness of time. We are told that something happened on 30th, whereas all our television channels saw Mr. Ajit Pawar declaring as late as Monday and Sunday that Mr. Sharad Pawar is a leader. Your television channels have captured it.
No, but that he is still saying. In fact, when I interviewed Praful Patel yesterday, he says, I don't want to say a word about Sharad Pawar. He is our foremost leader, etc., etc. They want Sharad Pawar to buy into what it is that they are doing. He's not willing to do that.
It's very easy to say these things. He's your foremost leader, and you removed him, and you've told the EC on 30th, which nobody knows on 2nd and 3rd, and the EC of all people takes 5 days, today 5th to inform you. Why was the EC strategically silent?
No.
These are all... I can tell you there are lots of issues arising here. It's not so simple. There are lots of hanky-panky things going on. But my point is a basic point. Politically, I think this exposes, even many of your channels say that as of today, the sympathy, the support, if an election were held today, is clearly with the, if I may use the word, MVA.
Okay.
Now, possibly this is done for that purpose.
No, but again, another legal question to you. and I know you have problems with this letters of support or signatures, etc., etc. But just bear with me for a moment. Sharad Pawar with 17 to 19 MLAs supporting him, it's not a insignificant number. And if this is an indicator of support, then wouldn't the Ajit Pawar camp fall short of the two-thirds number that they need to avoid anti-defection proceedings?
They are trying to avoid anti-defection proceeding by one simple technique. The speaker will decide the matter by not deciding. It's very simple to avoid anti-defection. Last time we are at 2.5 months of the Shiv Sena episode, and yesterday a petition has been filed in the Supreme Court to direct the speaker to avoid. I told you the BJP and its allies rely on process being the punishment.
Yeah.
So deciding something by not deciding is also a decision.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have the same thing here. Mr. Narvekar, who otherwise is a very intelligent person and a very dynamic person, takes 2.5 months to not even take step one in the Shiv Sena disqualification. I'm sure he will try and take 2.5 years in this one. So I don't think, that is the issue. Ultimately, we'll have to go to court. The Manipur speaker got strictures from the Supreme Court for sitting on and not deciding petitions. I'm sure a stage will come, but that unfortunately takes time. And we can't take the law into our own hands as the BJP seems to be doing everything.
Okay, so Dr. Singhvi, let me ask you about the larger issue. How does this affect or potentially affect opposition unity in the country?
I think on the contrary, it gives a fillip and a push to opposition unity. I have a different view. People are saying that, this actually dilutes. One of the objects given for this is to make sure that opposition unity doesn't survive. On the contrary, people realize that they have to be more united together. They have to stand more stronger together. They realize that each of their own regional strongholds and their own backyards are under danger, not by democratic means, but by poaching, by inducements. You criticize, abuse with the worst kind of vituperative language, and tomorrow you are sleeping bedfellows with them. Each of the 9 people, we know what things were said about corruption by Mr. Modi himself about these people. So I think this is actually leading to a greater sense of unity, a greater sense of urgency to unite. And I don't agree with this notion that just because you break away 9 people or 10 people or 30 people, this is a great deterrence to unity.
Okay. Dr. Singhvi, thanks very much for being with us and sharing, that perspective. Thanks very much indeed. I want to, just go back to Vishwas Pathak for a couple of his reactions to this. Mr. Pathak, the key point that Dr. Singhvi mentions is that legally this is untenable and that the best defense you have is time, that it will take time, but ultimately it will be overthrown. How would you respond?
Dr. Singhvi, with due respect, is missing certain things. Like, this is the case wherein they were supposed to go to the governor of Maharashtra, wherein 42 MLAs was making important point. See, it is not election commission wherein you have to give other evidences. See, with Mr. Ajit Pawar, there are majority of the state district presidents also and entire parties there. So Mr. Singhvi is ignoring that. Mr. Singhvi is also ignoring one fact that in 1978, when Mr. Pawar broke away and went away, was not that time EC was present, and same arguments were applicable that time also. Whether the party remained with Vasantdada party or with Sharad Pawar, these all are issues there. Therefore, Mr. Singhvi was making arguments very conveniently, and I know that what is going to happen in court. In court, Ajit Pawar has having good number of chances in his favor.
Mr. Pathak, the other point that he mentioned is that, look, it's going to go ultimately to the speaker and the speaker will not decide. And therefore, you will buy time.
I don't think so. Speaker is also bound by his own duties. He has also got his own role. And I think this speaker is very dynamic. He will come out with a proper decision. He has been saying also on record that very shortly he is going to come out and going to give justice to the whole system.
Okay. Mahesh Tapse, what is Sharad Pawar's next step going to be? I mean, we've had this show of support, etc., but politically, what is he going to do to try and consolidate, or is that difficult at this stage?
Well, Mr. Pawar is traveling into Delhi tomorrow morning, and he's called a meeting of all his national office bearers in Delhi tomorrow. And I think on 8th he's starting this tour, first going to Nasik and probably Jalgaon. And see, I think when this thing came to light on 2nd itself, Mr. Pawar said that I am going to go into the People's Court. I am going to start roaming Maharashtra, start touring Maharashtra, go and meet our political karyakartas and see to it that the party flock stays intact. We have got just about 6-7 months into the Lok Sabha. We have the Jila Parishad, the Code of Conduct coming in. Probably February, the Code of Conduct for the Lok Sabha might also set in. So I don't know how much time does this government has. Secondly, the biggest question is, now I want to question my friend Pathakji, is a very dear friend of mine. The Shinde, Eknath Shinde said that the NCP does not allow Shiv Sena to function. He parroted the same things what Ajit Dada said today. Last year, Shinde Saab said the same things. Today, when his own MLAs are saying that they were taken by surprise that BJP roped in Ajit Pawar into the cabinet, I think this was a statement made by Bachchu Kadu today in somewhere in Maharashtra. So this is something that where the Shinde group MLAs feel defeated.
No, I think that's an important point. In fact, Mr. Pathak,
BJP.
would you like to respond to that? And this is the key point, that there is no love lost between the Shinde group and Ajit Pawar and his group. I mean, they were fighting like cats, just a couple of days back. So therefore, in a situation like this, how easy is it going to be to function all together? And if you're going to the next elections together, then you'll have to get into seat sharing and all of that. Is that going to happen?
See, what Mahesh said is rightly correct. It is correct. See, in that time when this NCP and Shiv Sena were having a government together, that time Shiv Sena MLAs were grumbling about NCP's way of functioning. But that time the controlling person was Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, Chief Minister of Maharashtra, who was operating from home. This time Eknath Shinde is a very strong Chief Minister, and he is also assisted by a very able Deputy Chief Minister, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis. So I don't think there will be any issue. There will be proper distribution of power. Everybody will get justice, and that situation will not arise. As far as our three parties are concerned now, with 105 odd MLAs, BJP is settling at 9 and 10 seats. With 40 odd MLAs of Eknath Shinde, they are settling at 9-10 berths of the ministers. So similarly, this new entrant will also settle at same thing. I think there will be absolutely no problem. There will be good governance.
So the BJP says there will be no problem in accommodating their new alliance partners. Let's see what finally happens. I'd like to thank you all very much.
Will you give Ajit Dada the finance department?
Well, we'll wait and see what happens. We'll take a short break at this stage because I want to turn our attention to something which is important. Air pollution is a theme that we've followed here in NDTV so very closely, and so much in the past, so often in the past, it's been a fairly hopeless situation. Is there finally some good news? There is, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. That full report coming up. For years, we've tracked the state of air pollution in our country, and the numbers, particularly of PM 2.5, the smallest particles that cause the most damage, have been truly frightening. Now, in simple terms, in India, there are countless citizens who will not live as long as they normally would because of the impact of air pollution. Is there finally some hope? And the good news is that, yes, there is. But as we bring you this comprehensive report on the state of PM 2.5 in rural and urban India, it is important to note that we are still a long way away from breathing truly clean air. This new report comes from Climate Trends, and we'll be speaking to the authors. And the report makes the point that air pollution is not limited to specific areas, it's a nationwide concern. PM 2.5 levels are not very different across rural and urban areas. Between 2017 and 2022, PM 2.5 levels declined 19% in rural areas. That's good news. Between 2017 and 2022, PM 2.5 levels declined 18.7% in urban areas. And that, again, is excellent news. But is it enough? And we'll get to that in a moment. So the bottom line is that PM 2.5 levels have thus far plateaued across urban and rural areas over the last 6 years. Now, in terms of some key states which have done very well, between 2017 and 2022, and this is very welcome news, PM 2.5 levels in Uttar Pradesh have seen a 37.8% reduction in urban areas. Again, between 2017 and 2022, it's gone down by 38.1%, has PM 2.5 in rural areas in Uttar Pradesh. However, what are some of the states which haven't actually matched up in terms of the overall decrease? The news in Maharashtra, not particularly good. Between 2017 and 2022, PM 2.5 in Maharashtra saw just a 7.7% reduction in urban areas. And in Gujarat, if we look at rural areas, there's been an 8.2% reduction between 2017 and 2022, but it clearly doesn't keep up with the rate of reduction which we've seen, as I pointed out, in the state of Uttar Pradesh and several other states. Let's take a look at satellite data for PM 2.5 level decreases in major cities. And what is interesting is that this satellite data now increasingly matches the data which we get from ground level sensors. And therefore, since ground level sensors are not available across the large mass of the country, satellite data is very important. So if you look at Chennai over there, and let's have that number up. If you look at Chennai 40.86 was the PM 2.5 count in 2017. That's gone down to 28.9%. And let's keep changing to the other cities. If you look at Kolkata, it's gone down to 53.51 from 66.4. So again, an indicator of it going down. Lucknow has gone down to 57.43 from 107.7. Mumbai is down to 53.17. And let's take a look at New Delhi, which has really been a concern. It's been one of the most polluted cities on earth. It's gone down from 115.86 to 90.38. Remember, in New Delhi on days, we've seen the PM 2.5 count easily cross the 500 mark, which is very, very dangerous indeed. Let's quickly take a look now at satellite data of PM 2.5 levels, which show a decrease in rural areas. And we've picked at random 5 states. There's been an 18.1% decline in Karnataka in this time period. In West Bengal, it's gone down 15.6%. In UP, it's gone down a whopping 38.1%. So a lot of the welcome news is from Uttar Pradesh. Kerala, down 12.2%. And let's just bring you one or two more examples. Tamil Nadu at 22.7%. So what are some of the conclusions? The conclusions are these. Despite progress, which we've indicated to you, only 14 states brought down their urban PM 2.5 levels under the Indian Central Pollution Control Board limits. So there's a lot more that needs to be done. Essentially, we are still breathing polluted air. It gives you an idea of how bad it's been over the last several years. Despite progress, only 12 states brought down their rural PM 2.5 levels under Indian Central Pollution Control Board limits. But here's a larger figure. We really need to be looking at what global standards are, because we aspire for the best, don't we? In India, 99.9% of people continue to breathe unhealthy air based on World Health Organization guidelines. This, of course, is an aggregate number, but we are nowhere close to where we should be. Air pollution is now the biggest environmental risk for early death. Pollution-related deaths numbered 1.67 million in 2019. Long-term exposure can have permanent health effects. So that's what we're looking at. Joining us now, Aarti Khosla, the Director of Climate Trends, someone who's been very closely involved with this report. Polash Mukherjee, the lead of Air Quality and Health at NRDC India. Ronak Sutaria, the founder of Respira Living Sciences Private Limited. And Dr. Milind Kulkarni, an expert in air pollution, who's authored a book on personal exposure to air pollution. Thanks all very much for being with us. So, Aarti, we'll talk about the micro trends, but what I do find really interesting is that we've got this wonderful satellite data, and a couple of years back we never relied that much, if at all, on satellite data to give us an idea of the extent of air pollution. And what is interesting is that the data more or less correlates with what ground sensors are showing. And why this is important is because we can't have any number of ground sensors as we want, whereas satellite data is perhaps more easily available. Is that a breakthrough in terms of how we measure air pollution?
I believe so. And if you look at how in the last few years the air quality movement has assumed a status of a campaign, it's quite clear that there is a lot of attention on the subject. And that's led to new technology, new innovation. And I suppose this way of measuring air quality, where you're not installing monitors on ground, but you're actually using what is known in technical terms as aerosol optical depth. And you're using that as a proxy to calculate how much PM 2.5 exists in the air, is a new way of extrapolating or modeling data. I believe that this is a better way because there is always limitations in how much more and how much faster we can install the continuous air quality monitoring systems. With all the work that the organizations have done in the last 5 years and the monumental pressure that has been created to take mitigation on air quality levels at the next level, we still have about 700 to 800 continuous air monitoring systems. And the requirement is to have 4,000 across the country. So in the absence of the perfect, I suppose this is good enough. And this gives you the various kinds of top lines on how plateauing is happening, but the gains are not adequate. There is a lot of more effort that is needed if the ultimate goal is public health.
Yep.
And when you have reductions, the reductions are coming both in urban as well as rural areas, which means that limiting action to mitigate air quality only in cities is again going to be a piecemeal approach unless the decisions are not taken across a regional level. And I think that's the main findings that we've concluded from this study.
Polash, do any of the numbers surprise you? What surprised me was the data from Uttar Pradesh. It is very welcome data. What accounts for that dramatic drop in air pollution, PM 2.5 in Uttar Pradesh?
Thanks, Vishnu. I think the improvement in air quality levels was definitely a welcome surprise. Those of us who have been working on with cities and states know that it has been a challenging task. The fact that there has been an actual improvement over the last 6 years is something that is quite welcome. I think the reduction in air quality levels can be attributed to changes in monitoring, but as well as some large level changes that the NCAP has brought in. I believe some of the changes that have been successful so far have been at the very macro level, but much more remains to be done. I think what this report has also particularly significantly highlighted for me is the importance of a regional approach to air quality management. The fact that there is not much difference between urban air quality and rural air quality, and including the improvements, whereas NCAP has focused just on the urban areas, points to the fact that air quality has no political boundaries, and therefore effective actions can implement a larger region, so to say.
In fact, Dr. Kulkarni, this is it's been an open secret. We in the news and among concerned citizens, because we happen to live in Delhi, in metros, keep talking about metros. We keep talking about Delhi touching 500, etc., etc. But if you actually look at the pattern of PM 2.5 and its spread, or even PM 10, it is across the Indo-Gangetic plain. It swings south to peninsular India as well in winter during its worst months or worst weeks. So it's not at all an urban phenomena. It never was. It's just that the data we looked at was really restricted.
Yes, Vishnu. One of the revealing factors to me is the higher PM 2.5 levels even in the rural area. So that is one of the most revealing factors when I analyze this particular data.
Why would that be the case, sir? Because one would assume that in rural areas you wouldn't necessarily have as that same vehicular or industrial density. You wouldn't have as much density in terms of factories or even necessarily of people living together. Even if people were densely packed together, the overall size of habitations would be smaller. So why would air pollution necessarily be the same, essentially?
Exactly. So that is at one level a point of research. Another level, if I think whatever data available to me, even that you are living in Delhi and the most of the air pollution comes from the rural areas, adjoining states like Haryana. So maybe I can guess that maybe burning of stubble and related other activities. And of course, rural areas, the fuel which they use is low quality fuel compared to the fuel which we use in urban area, because most of the places they use wood, cow dung, etc., etc. So these are my preliminary guesses about why PM 2.5 levels are lower, but lower in relative term. If you compare with the standards of WHO, they are very high. The World Health Organization standards are 10 micrograms per meter cube, for example. So compared to that, PM 2.5 levels are very high. And here I would like to have another focus, different dimensions to the measurement of air quality. Why we are measuring air quality? Because air quality is the indicator of health, risk to the health, right? So when we are saying that this is the air quality of Mumbai, this is the air quality of Delhi, we are talking generalistically, right? So if you consider the population, the personal exposure of different categories of pollution is different, right? Sure. So when you are talking about satellite data and you are investing so much, why you are not investing in the assessment of personal exposure to air pollution? Like when I travel throughout the day, my exposure on the roads is different. Suppose a person is working constantly, traffic constable, his personal exposure is different. So we did research with Harvard School of Public Health and other institutes to monitor the personal exposure. So I feel India should do a lot in that.
No, I think that's an important point, because there are so many variables within exposure to pollution. I take that point entirely. I just wanted to go across to Ronak Sutaria. I think it's important, Ronak, and perhaps you're best placed in this panel to tell us a little bit about how, and this is a fact, that air pollution is killing us. In the past, you could never people used to die, or people continue to die of heart ailments, of lung ailments, of kidney ailments, of any number of ailments, but the cause was never linked to air pollution because that link was never possible. But there are studies now which clearly establish that the number of people dying as a result of air pollution, which may trigger each of the conditions which I've identified, is whopping. The number is whopping. And therefore the link is now established. There is science behind the numbers.
I mean, absolutely. I think in terms of health and fatalities, the numbers are out there. WHO, just from these kind of model studies has estimated, over 1.5 million deaths in India. But, how many disabilities, respiratory disabilities is close to 20 to 25 million. Now, Vishnu, as the previous Dr. Kulkarni said, WHO actually has debated between 10 micrograms to 8 micrograms, reducing the yearly average. The numbers here, the percentages numbers looked interesting, but I think it's important to remember that the percentages have dropped. The absolute numbers, I was looking at the report, the north and west, where the maximum burden of disease is going to happen, where the maximum population is in the western part and the northern part of the country. Not to say that south and east is any less, but the burden of disease, the burden of our health systems is going to be felt in the west of India and the north of India. Those numbers are at 60 micrograms for north urban, with states like Bihar reporting 77. WHO is saying 8 micrograms is acceptable levels for a yearly average. We have to remember that these are not 24-hour averages. CPCB puts out, 40 micrograms and 60 micrograms as 24-hour safe levels. We are breathing 60 micrograms of a cancerous substance entire year round, and any reduction in exposure to cancer does not lower your risk from cancer, because you're still exposed to the cancerous particulate matter. And I think while the reduction percentage can be appreciated, our focus, our attention on this cannot reduce, because exposure to cancer is exposure to cancer,
No, I know. The point being, we are nowhere close to where we need to be. But for the first time, I think in a decade of talking about this, I see a number or numbers which actually indicate hope, a little bit of hope. Aarti, does that at one level have to do with cleaner fuel now available, including for vehicles, the low sulfur diesel vehicles no longer as popular as they were even 3 years back? Bharat Stage 6 fuel emissions in terms of petrol and diesel, is that having an impact?
I believe the overall impact is really a shift in the policy sentiment, which realizes air pollution is a problem. if you look at the very complex source apportionment studies, as they are called, for cities, you will see transport is a big source, but industry is also a big source, and there are sporadic and some specific seasonal sources like stubble, etc., which contribute a big part of the problem in a particular part of the country. If you look at this data, you will see that rural pollution is very high in the south and the west. I haven't analyzed it, but my guess is that it's in those parts of the country where you still have high industry footprint, you have big industries where you don't have continuous air quality monitoring data, which is up in the public space for common view. We do not know what level of industrial pollution is being caused. So we are really going through a black hole on this one. And I think that is important, that the sources are very different in different areas. Overall, there are 4 to 5 sources which, span across the spectrum and include industry, power plants, transport, agriculture, domestic activities, construction, dust, and so on and so forth. But it's the share of all of these that matter. And I do think that, taking small measures does count, and every measure in this effort does count. If you make some roads where you don't bring in the trucks into the city, that has a role to play. If you make sure that the diesel gensets don't run, and you make stringent efforts to get the small and medium enterprises to reduce air pollution on a day-to-day, all of these things have a role to play. And I think that's the combined effect of all of these things that we are seeing, just the plateauing. If you're actually analyzing data a little bit more, and if I can take 30 seconds, the kind of improvement that's seen, which is 20 to 25% reduction over 5 years, is not monumental. That's the average number that should have been arrived if we are having the National Clean Air Program as the only policy instrument which tackles air pollution in the country. If we had to be happy, the improvements should have been 30 to 35%. So I think we are really having a minimum viable product at this stage, rather than being congratulatory and being very self-satisfied with this. It's best to be sure that we are in the right direction of travel, but a lot more needs to be done, and sources need to be acted upon in the order of where they exist.
Sure.
And which means to say that what's the problem in Delhi perhaps is also the problem in Agra, because they are in the same airshed. So same actions should be taken to mitigate the 3 or 4 primary sources of pollution in that area. But it might be different in Bombay, where we saw, just because the winds were calm and you had high levels of pollution building up, and which is why action in Maharashtra has been a little bit slow. You see massive improvement happened in UP, according to this data, but 7% improvement in Maharashtra. More than just policy not acting, I think it's also a case of how, by the time the problem happens, we only act after it, and we are not acting preventively.
Polash, are we on our way, or are we likely to reach our pollution control goals? I think 2024 was the next, we had announced certain goals to achieve. Are we on our way to achieving those? Just unmute yourself, Polash.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was saying that's a very important question. And to answer that, I'd just go back to the NCAP. The goals that we have set for ourselves are in terms of air quality levels, air pollution levels. And I think we need to go one step beyond that, which is what Dr. Kulkarni was also referring to. There's a need to monitor and set objectives for health outcomes. So right now we have a comprehensive data set on what every state or every city has done over the last 5-7 years. And that has happened because of these intense efforts. We need to have similar levels of health outcome monitoring at a granular level. So we need to know what the number of deaths are, the number of disabilities are that are owing to air quality at the city level. And that is a very important point, also given the process of revision of the National Ambient Air Quality Standards that Ronak was referring to. Given that India is revising these standards after a long time, after 2009, it's very, very important that this revision takes into account actual empirical health outcome data that we have from the ground, and also epidemiological evidence that we are generating now in the country. So once we start doing that, only then we'll know what our goals essentially are. Is what
we finally at least got some empirical data now on the basis of what satellites are showing us. But there is so much more that needs to be done in terms of a deep dive into what is the right thing that we have actually done for states like UP to go down, and then micro level studies, area to area. As Aarti was mentioning, areas which may be in the same airshed and yet are so fundamentally different in terms of how, from a policy standpoint, you're tackling air pollution. But I'm sure there's a lot more data that can actually come out and that can give us an idea where we are headed. But it's been fascinating reading this, gives us a glimmer of hope. But I take Aarti's point completely that we aren't there yet, not by a long shot. Thank you all very much for being with us.